So we're going to get our first track fired up, which is Alternative Calypso from Benson and Tonic, and we're going to start having a bit of a play with it and see exactly where we can get it to sit by the end of the mastering process. So what we're going to do firstly is we're just going to pull up our metering plugins and we'll have a bit of a look at what we're actually working with as far as this first track. And that will help give us an idea of where we're actually ending up with. We'll have a look at the metering again after we've applied the mastering to the sound, and that way you can see the difference between what we've got before mastering and what we've got after mastering. What I normally do on my main production machine is I do have multiple monitors, so I'd normally have one of the three monitors just set aside for the metering plugins, and that way have plenty of room for all of the other stuff. Unfortunately, because of the resolution of the tutorial, we don't really have the ability to do that today, but we will still be able to see exactly what's going on as far as the sound. So we're just going to play the track from partway through, just so that we can get a bit of an average level. If we have a look at the peak meters on the PAS analyzer, you'll see that the lowest average level they're coming down to is about -9 to -12 dB. So overall during this part of the track we're getting about 9 to 12 dB worth of dynamic range. You'll tend to find with most really good full mixers that they should at least be able to be sitting on -12 for the lowest average part of the sound and peaking just under 0 dB. When you're mixing, you do want to get as close to 0 dB as possible without hitting it, as it will allow you to make the best use of the overall range, the dynamic range of the mix engine in the software. So as I said, if we have a look at that, the lowest average level that the peak meters are coming down to is about -12 dB. And as you can see with the VU meters at the moment, we're averaging around -6 dB. So keep those numbers in mind, as we will be having a look at them a little bit more as we apply the mastering to the sound. The other thing to have a look at is our phase meter. You can see we are getting a little bit of stuff phasing, as you can see, coming out into the red zone there. And we do also still have a little bit more room that we could be using within the stereo width. With some of the mixes that I've worked on, the stereo has nearly been big enough to fill the entire blue part of the phase meter. So you want to try and keep stuff in the blue area, as that's when the left and right channel are working together. When you're getting stuff coming out into the red area, as you can see here, that means that you're getting one frequency coming out of the left channel, for example, which is the opposite phase of the frequency coming out of the right channel. And what that will tend to create in the listening environment is muddiness, which is exactly what you want to try and avoid. So, as I said, keep those numbers in mind, keep the sort of width that we've got happening here in mind, and also the sort of frequency spectrum that we've got happening, as you can see. So we'll just close those for the moment. And as I said, what we're going to do to start off with is we're just going to go through and clean this up a little bit, just add a little bit more width to it, get it to sparkle a little bit, and then we'll go through and make it louder, bring it up to commercial sort of volume level at the moment, and we'll play that track. Just adjusting our EQ a little bit to compensate for the tone that the reverb's adding in there. So one of the other things we're just going to quickly do with this reverb is just to put an EQ just before it, and we're going to roll off any of the lower frequencies just to keep the punchiness in the low end. And generally you don't really want bass frequencies going into a reverb anyway, as in a lot of cases all you're going to do is create muddiness. So we'll just have a quick listen to that with the high pass filter on there. If we take that EQ back off, you'll notice that the bass is a little bit more muddy with the reverb on it. If we bring that EQ back in, it's got a nice solidity and punch back in there. It can be a little bit difficult sometimes to hear exactly what's happening during the mastering process, as a lot of the things are quite subtle, and it can be more about getting a lot of subtle things to come together and do one big job together rather than choosing one technique that has a major difference on its own. So one of the other things that we're going to try on this track, it doesn't always work, but sometimes it can be quite a handy thing to do, is to use a bit of bass processing. We're going to do that in the form of Waves Max Bass. And what this one allows us to do is to take some of the lower bassier frequencies and to create harmonics of them. And what it actually does via psychoacoustic tricks actually makes your brain think you're hearing more bass than you actually are. And it actually makes it think you're hearing lower, fuller frequencies than you actually are. So it's a little bit of a trick, but it does help to work, and it also can help to not only bring the bass up that little bit, but also to help stop the bass from overpowering the overall mix, and it helps all of the other elements to still sit in there nicely while the bass is nice and punchy. So we're just going to find ourselves a bit of a preset. We're going to go for the light preset. We don't want it adding too much. So we'll just bypass that one for the moment, and we'll play it and we'll bring it in and we'll see what sort of a difference it's making to the sound. So this is without max bass. If we bring it in, you can hear it really working on the very, very lower part of the kick and also on the bass line itself. Again, it can be quite a subtle thing.